from Mulciber with fit new arms, which, when thy eyes shall see the sun next rise, shall enter here with his first beams, and me. First beams, and me. Thus to her sisters of the sea she turned, and bade them ope the doors and deeps of Nereus. She in Olympus' top must visit Vulcan for new arms to serve her wreakful son, and bade inform her father so, with all things further done. This said, they underwent the sea. This said, they underwent the sea, herself flew up to heaven. This said, they underwent the sea, herself flew up to heaven. In mean space to the Hellespont and ships to heaven. In mean space to heaven. In mean space to the Hellespont and ships. In mean space to the Hellespont and ships the Greeks were driven in shameful rout, nor could they yet from rage of Priam's son secure the dead of new assaults, both horse and men made on with such impression. Thrice the feet, the hands of Hector seized, and thrice the Ajaces thumped him off. This said, they underwent the sea, herself flew up to heaven. In mean space to the Hellespont and ships the Greeks were driven. The Greeks were driven in shameful rout. To the Hellespont and ships the Greeks were driven in shameful rout. The Greeks were driven in shameful rout. Nor could they yet, from rage of Priam's son, secure the dead of new assaults, both horse and men made on with such impression. Thrice the feet, the hands of Hector seized, and thrice the Ajaces thumped him off, with whose repulse displeased he wreaked his wrath upon the troops. Then to the course again made horrid turnings, crying out of his repulsed men, and would not quit him. Quite for death. A lion almost starved is not by upland herdsmen driven from urging to be served with more contention. With more contention than his strength. Urging to be served with more contention than his strength by those two of a name. And had perhaps his much praised will, if the airy-footed dame, swift Iris, had not stooped in haste, ambassadress from heaven to Peleus' son. Ambassadress from heaven to Peleus' son. In haste, ambassadress from heaven to Peleus' son, to bid him arm. Her message being given to Peleus' son, to bid him arm. Her message being given by Juno, kept from all the gods, she thus excited him. Let's pull in Iris. O Priam, thou art always pleased. She thus excited him. Rise, thou most terrible of men, and save the precious limb of thy beloved. Rise, thou most terrible of men, and save the precious limb of thy beloved, in whose behalf the conflict now runs high before the fleet, and either host fells before the fleet. The either host fells other mutually, these to retain, those to obtain. Amongst whom most of all is Hector prompt. His head forced, he'll be most famous. Is Hector prompt? He's apt to drag thy friend home. He, your Paul, will make his shoulders. His head forced, he'll be most famous. Rise, no more lie idle. Set the foe a much more costly prize of thy friend's value than let dogs make him a monument. Then let dogs make him a monument, where thy name will be given, where thy name will be graven. He asked, Let us ask some prophet, priest, or... He asked, What deity hath sent thy presence hither? She replied, Saturnia, she alone, not high Jove knowing, nor one god that doth inhabit on snowy Olympus. Knowing, nor one god that doth inhabit on snowy Olympus. He again, How shall I set upon the work of slaughter when mine arms are worn by Priam's son? How will my goddess mother grieve that bade I should not arm till she brought arms from Mulciber, worn by Priam's son? How will my goddess mother grieve that bade I should not arm till she brought arms from Mulciber? But should I do such harm to her and duty, who is he but Ajax that can vaunt the fitting my breast with his arms, and he is conversant among the first in use of his, and rampires of the foe slain near Patroclus builds to him. All this, said she, we know, and wish thou only wouldst but show thy person to the eyes of these hot Ilians, that afraid of further enterprise the Greeks may gain some little breath. She wooed, and was won, and straight Minerva honored him, who Jove's shield clapped upon his mighty shoulders, and his head girt with a cloud of gold that cast beams round about his brows. And as when arms enfold a city in an isle, from thence a fume at first appears, and being in the day, but when isle, from thence a fume at first appears, being in the day, but when the even her cloudy forehead rears, thick show the fires, and up they cast their splendor, that men nigh, seeing their distress, may set ships out to their supply. So to show such aid, from his head a light rose, scaling heaven. So to show such aid, from his head ships to set out their supply. Perhaps may set ships out, that men nigh show the fires, and up they cast their splendor, that men nigh, seeing their distress, perhaps may set ships out to their supply. So to show such aid, from his head a light arose, scaling heaven, and forth the wall he stepped and stood, nor brake the precept given by his great mother, mixed in fight, but sent abroad his voice, which Pallas far off echoed, who did betwixt them hoist shrill tumult to a topless height. And as a voice is heard with emulous affection, when any town is feared with siege of such a foe as kills men's minds, with siege of such a foe as kills men's minds, and for the town such a foe as kills men's minds, and for the town makes sound his trumpet. So the voice from Thetis issue thrown won emulously the ears of all. His brazen voice once heard, the minds of all were startled, so they yielded, and so feared the fair-maned horses that they flew back, and their chariots turned, presaging in their augurous hearts the labors that they mourned a little after. And their guides a repercussive dread took from the horrid radiance of his refulgent head, which Pallas set on fire with grace. Thrice great Achilles spake, and thrice in heat of all the charge, the Trojans started back. 12 men of greatest strength in Troy, left with their lives exhaled, their chariots and their darts to death with his thrice summons called. With their chariots and their darts to death with his three summons called. And then the Grecians spritefully drew from the darts the course, and summons called. And then the Grecians spritefully drew from the darts the course, and hearsed it, bearing it to the fleet, his friends with all remorse marching about it, his great friend dissolving then in tears about it. His great friend dissolving then in tears to see his truly loved returned, so horsed upon an hearse, whom such horse and chariot he set out, safe and whole, now wounded with unpitying steel, now sent without a soul, never again to be restored, never received but so. He followed, mourning bitterly. The sun yet far to go, Juno commanded to go. He followed, mourning bitterly. The sun yet far to go, Juno commanded to go down. Who, in his powers despite, sunk to the ocean, over the earth, to the ocean, over earth dispersing sudden night. And then the Greeks and Trojans both gave up their horse and darts. The Trojans all to council called, ere they refreshed their hearts with any supper, nor would sit. They grew so stiff with fear to see so long from heavy fight Iacides appear. They grew so stiff with fear to see so long from heavy fight Iacides appear. All right. I forgot that Polydamas and Hector would talk during this part. So we'll pull in Polydamas and Hector, and also Hector angry. And we'll have Polydamas ready on deck here. Hector and all our friends of Troy, we indiscreetly make offer. Iacides appear. Polydamas began to speak, who only could discern things future by things past, and was vowed friend to Hector, born in one night both. He thus advised: Consider well, my friends, in this so great and sudden change that now itself extends, what change is best for us to oppose. To this stands my command. Make now the town our strength, Not here abide light's rosy hand, our wall being far off, and our foe much greater still as near. Till this foe came, I well was pleased to keep our watches here. My fit hope of the fleet surprise inclined me so. But now 'tis stronger guarded, and their strength increased, we must allow our proportionate amends. I doubt exceedingly that this indifferency of fight twixt us and the enemy, and these bounds we prefix to them, will nothing so confine the uncurbed mind of Iacides. The height of his design aims at our city and our wives, and all bars in his way, being backed with less than walls, his power will scorn to make his stay, and overrun city and our wives, and all bars in his way, being backed with less than walls, his power will scorn to make his stay, and overrun as overseen, and not his object. Then let Troy be freely our retreat, lest, being enforced, our men twixt this and that be taken up by vultures, who by night may safe come off, being a time untimely, by night may safe come off, it being a time untimely for his might to spend at random, that being sure. If next light show us here to his assaults, each man will wish that Troy his refuge were, and then feel what he hears not now. I would to heaven mine ear were free even now of those complaints that you must after hear, if ye remove not. If ye yield, though wearied with a fight so late and long, we shall have strength in council and the night. And where we were here have no more force than need will force us to, and which must rise out of our nerves. High ports, towers, walls will do. Council and the night, and where we here have no more force than need will force us to, and which must rise out of our nerves. High ports, towers, walls will do what wants in us, and in the morn, all armed upon our towers, we all will stand out to our foe. 'Twill trouble all his powers to come from fleet and give us charge, when his high-crested horse his rage shall satiate with the toil of this and that way's course, vain entry seeking underneath our well-defended walls, and he be glad to turn to fleet about his funerals. For of his entry here at home, what mind will serve his thirst, or ever feed him with sacked Troy? The dogs shall eat him first. For of his entry here at home, what mind will serve his thirst, or ever feed him with sacked Troy? The dogs shall eat him first. Trojans and hardy Greeks. Impostor, woman's man. The dogs shall eat him first. At this speech, Hector bent his brows and said, This makes not great, your grace with me, Polydamas, that argue for retreat to Troy's old prison. To Troy's old prison. Have we not enough of those towers yet? And is not Troy yet charged enough with impositions set upon her citizens to keep our men from spoil without? But still we must impose within. The houses with our rout within. That houses with our rout as well as purses may be plagued. Before time, Priam's town trafficked with diverse languaged men, and all gave the renown of rich Troy to it, brass and gold abounding. But her store is now from every house exhaust. Possessions evermore are sold out into Phrygia and lovely Meone, and have been ever since Jove's wrath. And now his clemency gives me the mean to quit our want with glory, and conclude the Greeks in seaboards and our seas, to slack it and extrude his offered bounty by our flight. Fool that thou art, bewray this counsel to no common ear, for no man shall obey. If any will, I'll check his will. But what our self-command, let all observe. Take suppers all, keep watch of every hand. If any Trojan have some spoil that takes his too much care, make him dispose it publicly. 'Tis better any fare, the better for him than the Greeks. When light then decks the skies, let all arm for a fierce assault. If great Achilles rise and will enforce our greater toil, it may rise so to him. On my back he shall find no wings. My spirit shall force my limb to stand his worst and give or take. Mars is our common lord, and the desirous swordsman's life he ever puts to sword. The council gat applause to sword. This council gat applause of all. So much were all unwise. Minerva robbed them of their brains, to like the ill advice the great man gave, and leave the good, since by the meaner given. All took their suppers, but the Greeks spent all the heavy even about Patroclus' mournful rites, Pylades leading all in all the forms of heaviness. He by his side did fall, and his man-slaughtering hands imposed into his oft-kissed breast. Sighs blew up sighs, and lion-like graced with a goodly crest. That in his absence, being robbed by hunters of his whelps, returns to his desolate den, and then for his wanted helps, beholding his unlooked-for wants, flies unlooked for once, flies roaring back again. Hunts the sly hunter, many a veil resounding his disdain. So mourned Peliades many a veil resounding his disdain. So mourned Peliades his late loss, so weighty were his moans, which for their dumb sounds now gave words to all his myrmidons. O gods, said he, how vain a vow I made, how vain a vow I made, how vain a vow I made, how vain a vow I made. O gods, said he, how vain a vow I made to cheer the mind of sad Menetius when his son his hand to mine resigned, that high-towered opus he should see, and leave raised Ilion, with spoil and honor even with me. With honor even with me. But Jove vouchsafes to none wished passages to all his vows. We both were destinate to blood one earth. We both were destinate to bloody one earth here in Troy, nor any more estate in my return hath Peleus or Thetis, but because I last must undergo the ground, I'll keep no funeral laws. O my Patroclus, for thy course, before I hither bring the arms of Hector and his head to thee for offering. 12. Let us ask some prophet to thee for offering. 12 youths and his head to thee for offering. 12 youths, the most renowned of Troy, I'll sacrifice beside, before thy heap of funeral, to thee unpacified. In meantime, by our crooked sterns lie drawing tears from me, and round about thy honored course these dames of Dardany and Ilion with the ample breasts, whom our long spears and powers and labors purchased from the rich and by us ruined towers. And cities strong and populous with diverse languaged men shall kneel, and neither day nor night be licensed to abstain from solemn watches, their toiled eyes held ope with endless tears. Toiled eyes held ope with endless tears. This passion past, he gave command to his near soldiers to put a tripod to the fire, to cleanse the festered gore from off the person. They obeyed, and presently did pour fresh water in it, kindled wood, and with an instant flame the belly of the tripod girt, till fire's hot quality came up to the water. Then they washed and filled the mortal wound with wealthy oil of 9 years old, then wrapped the body round in largeness of a fine white sheet, and put it then in bed, when all watched all night with their lord. And spent sighs on the dead.